For more than 20 years of my life, I had been someone with absolutely no discipline. I would skip school for months, I would spend the entire night watching garbage on the internet, my grades were horrible, my assignments were overdue, and I was addicted to fast food and scrolling. I genuinely did try to fix my life, but for some reason or the other, I just kept going back to my old habits. But that isn't who I am anymore. I am now someone who has worked as a software engineer at Fortune 500 companies. Additionally, I've been one of the best performing students in my master's and my bachelor's program. Now I consistently lift weights, read books, work on my business, and train martial arts 6 days a week. In this video, I'm going to show you what were the things that I was doing wrong in the past that were holding me back, and what are the things that I did to make this transformation possible. So let's get right into it. The single biggest mistake that I was making in the past was that I was solely relying on willpower. I used to think that the way disciplined people would actually operate was that they would just think about doing something and then they would just do it. And if you're not able to just do that thing, then you're probably a loser or there's something innately wrong with you. But after using the strategy for years and years and just repeatedly failing, I realized that willpower is a limited resource and it is bound to run out. Maybe you can carry on using raw willpower and be a bit productive and disciplined for like 3 or 4 days. But on day 5, when the motivation eventually runs out, you're going to revert back to your old habits. Imagine that there is this circular pit, and inside of this pit there are like 50 people. All of them are just fighting each other to survive and get out of that pit. Now these 50 people, they're well equipped with body armor, with headgear, with amazing guns, and they have like night vision goggles and stuff. And on the other hand, there's you. No body armor, none of the fancy equipment, just a tiny little pocket knife. What do you think are your chances of getting out of that pit alive? It's probably non-existent, right? Unless you're like John Wick or something. If you are the type of person that is just using raw willpower to get disciplined and do productive things, then you are just like that person with his tiny knife trying to survive that pit. You are not going to survive for long because you do not have the right equipment for the job. In the rest of this video, I'm going to equip you with powerful tools that are actually going to turn the odds in your favor. The most important weapon that you should have in your arsenal is systems. Systems are a set of procedures or principles according to which something is done. Now, there are 2 types of systems which I use in my life. The first one is a system that I use to navigate my day. This is what most people call a routine. The reason why a routine is so magical is because when you have the time listed down for each of the activities that you do in a day, then you are much more likely to get them done. And there are 2 reasons for this. Firstly, you do not have to make any more decisions on the go. You do not have to debate yourself as to what you should be doing. Should you be going to the gym? Should you be reading? Should you be eating now? Or should you be eating 10 minutes from now? All these decisions are very psychologically taxing and drain you. But when you have a routine, all you need to do is blindly follow that routine. You do not have to make any more decisions. And this way you could actually use that energy to get the tasks started instead. The second reason why a routine is so powerful is because it gets you psychologically ready for the task that is up next. If you know that you have a gym session coming up in the next 30 minutes, it makes it a lot easier to break free from the task that you're currently doing and switch over to the task that you have in your routine. Like, you are now more subconsciously ready to just go out there and lift heavy weights. But if you do not know what's coming next, then your body has no chance to prepare itself. Here's one pro tip that I use so that I actually follow my routine. Whenever I have an activity listed down on my routine, I try to remove all the barriers that surround that activity. For example, if I have the task of studying in the next 20 minutes, then I would make sure that my desk is clean, my books are out, I know exactly what subject I need to be studying. Removing all these micro barriers from an activity make it much easier to start that activity and actually stick to your routine. But if you have to go through like 50 barriers before you actually begin the activity, then chances are you're not going to follow your routine. The second form of system I use in my life is something called a code of conduct. The code of conduct is basically a set of rules that I never try to break. And like, some of these rules in there, you might find that they are restricting like harmless behaviors. But these apparently harmless behaviors lead to major negative outcomes in my life. For example, I have this one rule that do not check your cell phone for the first 4 hours in the day. And this rule has saved me like countless times. Before having this rule, what I would do is just wake up, check my notifications and scroll for a while. But then for the rest of the day, I would have this chaotic negative energy and my attention span used to be shortened, and I could not really focus on anything, and I would just waste the entire day. And all this happened because of this simple, seemingly harmless activity of just checking your notifications and scrolling. It would be really helpful if you created a code of conduct for your own life based on your own lived experiences. Like, you know, there are certain things which people around you probably consider harmless, but you know they lead to very, very negative outcomes in your life. Like, there could be a rule saying that I'm not going to meet this one particular friend because each time I meet him, he offers me a cigarette and I smoke and I relapse, and then I'm back to smoking 30 cigarettes a day. When I was living life without a purpose, I used to constantly seek instant pleasure. This is the sort of pleasure that most of us are used to getting. I would play video games, I would scroll through social media, I would binge watch shows on Netflix, I would eat shitty food. My entire day was about having as much quick fun as possible. But what I realized was that all this quick fun, it comes at a cost, and the cost is that you are going to have less motivation, you're going to be less satisfied with life, you're going to be more depressed, and you're going to have more anxiety. And the worst part is that when you feel all these negative emotions, you are going to want more of these quick pleasure giving things, and then this becomes this vicious cycle that eats away years of your life. But then there's this other category of pleasure called delayed gratification. This is something that most people do not experience that often, but think about that one time you actually did something challenging. Maybe you studied for an hour, maybe you finished a session at the gym, maybe you read a couple of chapters of a book, and then you experience this positive emotion, knowing that you've done something to progress, you've done something that was sort of challenging. And this dose of pleasure is actually very rejuvenating. It does not make you feel like shit later on. What I've understood in my 27 years of living is that you are going to require some form of pleasure in your life. Now the question is, what type of pleasure are you going to choose? Are you going to pick that instant pleasure that is going to eventually destroy you in the long run? Or are you going to pick delayed gratification, which is going to build you up? After I did these productive habits that made me feel rejuvenated, I realized that I no longer wanted that quick dose of pleasure anymore. I now look forward to doing 4 hours of deep work. I look forward to actually hitting the gym. Like, these are the most fulfilling activities of my day. And this is how you truly be disciplined in the long run, when the productive activities, when the hard things, they actually become rewarding.